We have a lot to get through. Carl, of course, worked with Sam Allardyce towards the end of the season with Leeds United. Regrettably, they couldn't stay in the Premier League, so it's a championship for Leeds United next season. But Carl, we now know Daniel Farke reportedly close to being named as new manager. What about this? I mean, is there wisdom in this, Carl, in that championship know-how? It's a sensible decision to make. You're not sure?
No, I'm not sure, if I'm being honest. I think, for me, when they went down, it's a necessity to come back up. We were talking about the fan base before, you had the Man City game. It was way more than what I thought. I've managed there 3 or 4 times, and you know they're a big club, but not until you truly go into these football clubs do you understand how big they are and how good the people are that work there. So when they went down, it's a necessity to come back. So experience of promotion is important. I think the know-how of that's where that is a massive tick. I think one of the big problems that they do have, you look, obviously what Bielsa did was still heroic in some ways, and the way they speak about him still is so huge. But then Jesse Marsh didn't work. Javier Garcia didn't work. Sam came in, obviously didn't work.
What did you hear about those times in charge for Marsh for having?
I think when I plead the fifth, I think that says an awful lot when I say nothing about something. So
what, you'd rather not comment on what you heard?
No, and I think, listen, everyone has the best intentions when they go into football clubs, and there'll be some people who'll go in after me and go how horrendous Carl Robinson was, or Stuart Pearce was as a manager. So, but that's just part of football, and again we move forward, and there's always things that people look back at things that you've done wrong, and we openly admit that when we've left we would have changed things. And I think they certainly would have done that. But I think the staff change in the amount of people that he brought in. As you know, Bielsa brought an entourage of people. Then he goes. Then Jesse Marsh did exactly the same thing. Then he goes. And Javier Garcia comes in and brings 8, 9, 10 people with him. And then he goes. And then Sam just brings in me and Keno. And the one problem I had with Leeds United, the biggest problem, they had great people already in the building. Through the academy system, good coaches, good sports science, good sports medicine, really good people at the root of the football club. And then people bringing in people above them. And then all of a sudden you lose your identity. I think one of the big things when a manager goes in at the top level, they bring in so many people with them that they lose what's been good before rather than just tinkering with it.
Well, it sounds like too many cooks.
Do you view Leeds like, when Brian Clough left Forest, there was a big void, to be quite honest with you, because of his personality and everything. Same with Sir Alex when he left Manchester United. There was that void. Do you think the same can be said of Leeds United with Bielsa because of how he's viewed by the fans, the style of play, everything that come with him? Even so, it was a short period of time compared to the other 2 individuals I've mentioned.
It wasn't so much the void, yes, with him because he was so intense. Some of the stories were incredible. There was a story, again, I don't know how, it must have been true because the person who told me wouldn't lie, that he was off one day, which was a rarity. He lived in a flat just down the road. I think it must have been a Sunday recovery day. One player wouldn't do something. He got in his car, drove right up the side of the pitch to have a go at the player, and then got off and drove away. He was 100 mile an hour in his intensity, and Leeds United played like that. Some will say burnout. Some will say that gets to a level where it becomes so over the top that the players can't consistently perform to them levels.
Can you confirm something for me, Carl? I hope I'm not dropping you in it here. Was it true that if Sam had gone upstairs, the condition of Sam going upstairs, that Sam was laying down was that Carl Robinson got the job?
It's what I read.
Come on.
It wasn't just from me, it was also Keno. And by the way, Keno shocked me as well. His attention to detail for an ex-player of that calibre. Really good coach.
So Sam wanted you to get the reins, all right?
I think that's what was said. Am I good enough? That's for other people to comment on that. Most people will say no, but that's what he said. I think it was more a case of it was continuity. You would have backed yourself though. Yeah, I would have. Carl, you're not short in confidence. I am a little bit at times. When you know me, I am. The bravado that comes with what we do within our industries. But I think it was more continuity. It wasn't so much it was me, it was continuity for the staff. Right. And I think that so take my name out of this, because that sounds very egotistical in some ways. It wasn't about me, it was the consistency was a necessity. Because of the amount of change that these players had, the coaches had, the backroom staff had, and equally most importantly, the fans. And I think that was the bit that Sam was stronger on, was the fact that I think he felt that the club needed that to continue. What he'd started to build was a real close-knit group of staff that were willing to work with the players to move forward.
Yeah.
And that didn't have to be me. It could have been anybody. It was just the continuity of the situation.
Would you be optimistic for Leeds United if indeed it is Daniel Farke? Do you fear for Leeds United?
I don't fear for Leeds United. I fear for a lot of teams in the Championship this year. I think you only have to look what's come down, the strength of that, and equally what's come up. You look at any manager, you look at the league, you look at the player teams that have been promoted sometimes rather than the teams that have been relegated. And the likes of Sheffield Wednesday now coming in it. I know you've got Plymouth, but you've also got likes of Ipswich. They're going to all spend big. They're going to have a right good go. So they're going to make the Championship an even more difficult than what it was probably last season. The worry I have is there's players with buyout in the contracts, as everyone knows, has been well documented, and how long that's going to take to restructure, rebuild, who stays, who goes. And there's some top quality players. Asked me a question before. There is some really, really good players at Leeds United. There really is. And I just think they've been unlucky. They've had some injuries along the journey last season that put them in that situation.
How much confidence did you and Sam have, Carl, that you could, the 4 games that you had, that you could keep them in the Premier League?
We felt confident, 100%. I think that when you look back on that, you look at the games that I really feel had an impact on the relegation: Fulham, Leicester, Bournemouth, Palace, the 5-1 defeat at home. You have to win them, Stuart, to stay in the Premier League. When you look at the games that we had, the best team in the world, the team that are arguably fighting to get in the Champions League, which they did in Newcastle United, West Ham, who were going to play in a European competition in a final, and then Tottenham on any given day with Son and Harry Kane can beat anybody. That was the enormity of the challenge. But when you go in, you have that belief that you can do something. You have to take the pressure off them, which the gaffer did. And unfortunately, I think if Leeds fans, if you're being totally honest, there'll be moments in games, even against Man City, large part of the Newcastle game, the first half, certainly 40 minutes against West Ham, we were the better team. I just didn't feel we had long enough to sustain that level of performance over a longer period of time in the Premier League to stay in the Premier League.
I went to covering for talkSPORT the first 2 games. The one at Manchester City, I've got to say, firstly, the fans were unbelievable. There's been a few times I've walked into stadiums this year. One was Nottingham Forest and the atmosphere there. One was at Newcastle as well. And the other one was the Leeds fans away at Manchester City. They were incredible for 90 minutes. I was a little bit underwhelmed with the performance. I think there was a fear factor going to Man City. It's a horrible place. Well, it's not a horrible place to go.
Not as fearful of us.
Yeah, they're an outstanding team. It wasn't until probably the last 15 minutes there was an hurrah from the Leeds players. And the second game, the Newcastle one, to be honest with you, Leeds should have won that game. Yeah. Newcastle were under par. Leeds played as well and they give 2 horrific goals away, didn't they?
The Newcastle game, when you look at, we went 1-0 up. We missed a penalty, conceded a penalty, conceded a penalty, player sent off.
Yeah, it couldn't have got worse.
It's a recipe for disaster.
And if you look at the Newcastle game, and listen, we could have gone 2 up, we never. At West Ham, we should have gone 2 up and missed 1 or 2 opportunities to do it. We could never get that second goal. That sometimes, the back end of the season, games are always difficult. But when you can deflate the opposition early on, they're the time at the back end of the season. That's when it does become maybe a little bit easier.
Missing that penalty, it's a making or breaking of a player, isn't it? And I think Bamford came in for a lot of stick.
He did come for a lot of stick, and I know him personally, so that's I've said before, I've had him as a manager as well, and a player that I've got tremendous respect for as a human being as well.
Was it horrendous, Carl?
Yeah, it was bad. Yeah, it was bad. And I think it's totally uncalled for. Listen, at no stage to what we do on a football pitch or what we do as a manager does our families and ever come under threat. That should never happen. And you will get criticism doing the show today. Of course. It's part and parcel. We've spoke many times when we do these shows. Yeah. But when it gets family involved and when it gets so personal and when they're at your house and so on and so forth, it then becomes uncontrollable, which is not fair. And by the way, it's not what Leeds United fans are about. So it's not fair they're judged on that.
I would say I think it's a bad time for Leeds to get relegated. In fact, all 3 teams have got Premier League credentials now, Southampton and Leicester as well. Yep. So them dropping in the Championship, I think is really tough.
Harder than ever,
Quite often, if teams come up, have 1 year up and get relegated, they go down quite weak. These 3 teams, I'm not sure they will
Carl, enlighten us, because Big Sam caused a bit of a stir in his first press conference at Leeds United. For those who don't remember, have a listen.
I might be 68 and look old, but there's nobody ahead of me. in football terms. Not Pep, not Klopp, not Arteta. So it's all there with me, and I share it with them. They do what they do. I do what I do. But in terms of knowledge and depth of knowledge, I'm up there with them. I'm not saying I'm better than them, but certainly as good as they are.
He's up there with them. He's not saying he's better than... What was that about?
Oh, mate, it was brilliant. It was genius at work. It really was. We were having lunch. That must have been... I can't remember what day we played, but Sunday maybe. Anyway, we were having lunch 2 days before, and he goes, I've got the press after. It must have been 3 o'clock presser. And he went, I need to take the pressure off the players. You could see it when you walked in. It was so low and down, and you're playing Man City, the best team in the world, with Haaland and De Bruyne and Gundogan. You think, uh-oh. And he needed something, and I said, what are you going to do? And he went, I'll think of something, big man. So he walked out, and then we were in the office afterwards, and the press guy walked in, and people can't see my facial reaction, but he went, pulled the face, and the next thing the gaffer bolted the door, laughing his head off. And I can't exactly use the words that he used. He said, but he told me what he'd said, and what he said, honestly, if any fool falls for that, and by the way,
and we all did.
And by the way, in a way, at what he does, he's a genius at what he does. I know we got relegated, but he's outstanding. If you spoke to any Leeds United player, they will have everything positive to say about his team talks, his attention to detail, and the way he coaches. So he is. Yeah. Very, very good.
As Carl says, it was designed, Stuart, to take the heat off the players.
At the time, we decoded it, obviously leading into the Manchester City game, and I said straight away, he's either gone in and he believes it, or, as you often do as a manager, you're in front of a microphone, you've got the opportunity to sow a message out there for ulterior motives. Yeah. And I said he might well have done it for that reason, to take the pressure off of the group of players.
Mate. But he couldn't stop laughing when he come in the office, and he got a little bit of stick off one or two people afterwards, and he couldn't believe that people in the game actually
bought into it.
And I remember when we got to City on the day, and obviously Pep came up to him, just started laughing and shook his hand. He knew what he meant by it. So it was honestly it was genius in a way.
Here's the thing: do Leeds go straight back up?
I hope so.
Yeah,
I hope so.
Right,
I hope so, because of the staff and the players that we were able to get a relationship with, and I hope for them that they still work with the young players.
Yeah,
some really good talented
do
players.
They go straight back up, Stuart?
I'm not sure. I think with the magnitude of the 3 teams gone down, as Carl mentioned earlier, there's teams coming out of the league below that into that division that might
have
a go.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Luton have proved teams that you are a little bit unfancied can go all the way themselves.
Sure.
So there's going to be an outlier in there that we've not talked about.
We always say the Championship's brutal. My God, it certainly will be next season. It's 10-11.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.